black janitor picks up a medical book off the shelf and sneaks a peek at it on his first day of work. He ended up being bumped into by the professor. He immediately pointed to the instrument over there and asked him what it was called.
Van Slyke Neil gas manometer, sir, doctor.
The little black man blurted it out. The professor was a bit surprised, so he asked him to hold out his hand and show it to him. With just one glance, the professor seemed to have found a treasure, and hurriedly handed him a pair of vascular clamps. Blackie took it and picked up the test tube with ease. The professor decided to make it more difficult and asked him to try with his left hand. As a result, Blackie not only did it again with ease, but he was also able to use both hands to close the cork at the same time. The professor was dumbfounded, knowing that this kind of left and right-handed fighting skills. Even he had practiced for more than 10 years to be able to be so smooth. So the next day, Blackie was promoted to assistant by the professor. Blackie was very proud of himself, and a generation of legendary heart surgery techniques began. As it turned out, Blackie's name was Thomas. Born into a family of carpenters, he had been practicing his carpentry skills since he was a child. But Thomas did not aspire to become a respected doctor. But in the 30s, when you had to give way to the white man. But in the 1930s, when you had to give way to a white man. So he picked a job at the medical school, even if it meant cleaning the dog run. Now that he was a professor's assistant, Thomas could finally study in a legitimate way, and he appreciated the opportunity. He even walked to and from work with a book in his hand. As a result, in just a few days, he mastered anesthesia.
He weighs 18.4 kilograms, and it should take 552 milligrams of sodium barbital to anesthetize him for 3 hours. The absorption rate is uniform.
The professor was once again shocked by Thomas's talent. A year passed in a flash, and Thomas had his first knife fight of his life. A golden retriever broke its ribs and went into traumatic shock. With the medical technology at that time, the dog could only wait for death. But it just so happened that the professor had been researching a new type of surgery for traumatic shock. So he drew a line with a pen and asked Thomas to cut along it. Thomas quickly found the dog's pulmonary artery and started the operation. As he watched his blood pressure drop, the professor said seriously, "If a person breaks a rib and goes into shock, the traditional treatment is to stop the bleeding. But I think it's better to stop than to stop. Only stabilizing the blood pressure can save lives." He then asked Thomas to give the dog a blood transfusion, but the blood pressure continued to drop. But the blood pressure continues to drop. It seems the professor was wrong. Just when they'd lost all hope, the blood pressure miraculously begins to rise. This is a sign that life is being revived. For the first time, Thomas felt the beauty of saving a life, and this success would be the cornerstone of human heart surgery. The professor rushed in to check the recorder, but Thomas had no idea what it was. That meant a whole day's worth of research had gone down the drain. The professor was furious, and he used every curse word he could think of.
Do you have sawdust or just plain shit for breakfast?
Thomas was cursed. He thought he had met a man of honor. He didn't think he'd be treated with the slightest respect here. He immediately took off his lab coat and was ready to leave. The angry professor told him to get lost, but at that moment the handwriting on the table caught the professor's attention. It turned out that Thomas didn't know what a recorder was, so he drew the whole operation by hand. "It's much better than that damn recorder." The professor realized his mistake and rushed out after him. He apologized to Thomas, saying he was the best assistant he'd ever had, and promised that it would never happen again. Thomas was touched by the professor's attitude. After all, in those days, it was almost impossible for a white man to apologize to a black man. It was almost impossible for a white man to apologize to a black man. Thomas took the white coat from the professor, and so, the two men worked together for 12 years. During that time, their research saved thousands of World War II soldiers. The professor became so famous, he was made chief of surgery at Hopkins. That's the most prestigious medical school in the world. The professor hosted a celebration dinner that night. Thomas was there, of course, but as a waiter. During his speech, the professor didn't mention Thomas's name even though it was the result of two people's research, for the simple reason that he was black. Back home, his wife couldn't help but feel sorry for him. The family had been away from home for over 10 years for his dream, with a microblogging salary that was barely enough to pay the rent. And now that they've made their mark, they can't even mention their names. Although Thomas was upset, he understood the benefits of working at Hopkins with his professor. However, reality soon taught him a lesson. When they walked into Hopkins, they saw portraits of medical pioneers all over the walls. One day, the professor said ambitiously, "My portrait will be hung here, too." Unbeknownst to him, the professor's words planted a seed in Thomas's mind. As the two of them were walking towards the lab, they were suddenly stopped by the security guard.
Excuse me. All workers pledge at the rear entrance.
He's with me.
It don't make any difference. I'm sorry, Dr. Blalock, but that's the rules.
I'll meet you in the labs, Vivien.
Thomas could only walk out silently, past the stone statue of Christ, a symbol of equality, when he appeared in the corridor of the hospital in his white coat. Everyone was staring at him with a strange look on their faces. It was ridiculous for a black man to be here. The white supervisor treated him like a handyman. He made him run errands and buy himself coffee. It's a good thing not all white people are so arrogant, like this woman doctor right here. Her name is Helen Tausig, another legend in the field of cardiology. On this day, they came to the cardiology department for a checkup. Thomas noticed that all the children here were blue and sitting on their beds holding their legs. Helen explained that this was the only way to reduce blood flow to the lower extremities, so they could breathe better. As it turns out, these children all have the incurable condition of blue baby. It's a congenital heart abnormality where the aorta leading from the heart to the lungs is blocked. So the patient is deprived of oxygen for a long time, and his face turns blue and purple. Heart surgery was the only way to get more blood to the lungs. But at that time, no doctor dared to operate on the heart. The mortality rate for this disease was 100%. Helen, a kind-hearted doctor, invited the professor to join her in tackling the problem. The professor, who was already ambitious, agreed immediately, and the three of them were bound to pioneer heart surgery. Because of the delicate nature of the baby's heart, the professor proposed to restore the disease in a dog first, and then find a solution. But a dog's heart is very small, and its blood vessels are only 2 to 3 millimeters thick. The medical equipment available at the time was not up to the task. Their experiments failed every time. The professor asked Thomas to think of a way to improve the device.